Hello, everyone. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is now facing a crisis that many say could define the end of his political career. What we're watching unfold is not only a war on multiple fronts, but also a collapse of control within his own government. The divide between Israel's political leadership and its military leadership has grown wider than ever, and at the center of it all stands Netanyahu, trying to hold power as the situation around him spirals. Here's what's happening. The Chief of Staff of the Israel Defense Forces, Israel's highest-ranking military officer, has gone public with his opposition to Netanyahu's plans for the next stage of the war. Instead of supporting an expanded offensive, he's urging the government to accept a ceasefire and a hostage deal with Hamas. This is not a small disagreement. It's a direct challenge from the very institution that Netanyahu relies on to carry out his policies. When the army begins to openly question the prime minister's judgment, it signals a loss of confidence at the highest levels. But the prime minister's troubles don't end there. His governing coalition, already fragile, is under constant threat. Two of his most extreme right-wing ministers have drawn a red line. If Netanyahu moves toward a ceasefire deal, they will quit the government. That would almost certainly collapse the coalition and trigger early elections, long before the scheduled October vote. Netanyahu knows that accepting the deal could save hostages, but it could also end his premiership. He is essentially trapped between military pressure, political blackmail, and the growing anger of the Israeli public. Meanwhile, international outrage is intensifying after a deadly strike on Gaza's Nasser hospital. At least 20 people were killed, including 4 journalists, among them a Reuters cameraman and an Associated Press reporter. The IDF has acknowledged responsibility and announced an inquiry, insisting that civilians and journalists are never deliberate targets. This rare admission underscores just how serious the incident was. But critics argue that Israel's inquiries rarely lead to real accountability, leaving Netanyahu further isolated on the world stage. And if that wasn't enough, the conflict is now spilling across borders. Over the weekend, Israeli fighter jets struck Yemen's presidential palace after Houthi rebels fired a missile carrying a cluster warhead toward Israel. This was the first time such a weapon had been launched from Yemen. Until now, these types of missiles were only known to come from Iran. Israeli defense systems intercepted part of the attack, but fragments still fell on civilian homes. For Israel, this is alarming. There's no direct conflict with Yemen, no shared border, no long-standing dispute. Yet the Houthis, widely seen as operating under Iran's direction, are now openly targeting Israel. It's a dangerous escalation in a war that is already regional. Put all of this together, and the picture becomes clear. Netanyahu is losing control. He is caught in a tug-of-war between his military commanders, who are demanding a pragmatic deal to save hostages, his far-right allies, who are threatening to collapse his government, his critics abroad, who are condemning Israel over civilian deaths, and new enemies across the region, who are dragging Israel into deeper conflict. For decades, Netanyahu has built his political brand on being Mr. Security, the strong man who can keep Israel safe. But now, with rockets falling, allies rebelling, and the army itself pushing back against his leadership, that image is crumbling. His survival as prime minister no longer depends on military victories or diplomatic maneuvering. It depends on whether he can prevent his own government from tearing itself apart. So the big question now is, can Netanyahu hold on, or are we watching the beginning of the end of his rule? So what's your take? Drop a comment below.